My name is Jennifer Lawrence. I grew up the oldest of 3 children, a single mom, big mama, and we was all in one house. And then my aunt came with her 3 children, so we were all just one big family in this home in Pine Grove, Shannon. My mother was a minister, and so that's how I grew up with Christian values and beliefs. Well, I didn't think this would be a little bit challenging, but that's how I grew up. My mother used to work as she used to clean this lady's house in Mississippi, Tupelo. I won't give her name, but she would clean her home. And the lady, I remember, she would bring us clothes for Christmas. My aunt, Ruby Beckley, I hope I can say her name, she is a 4-H volunteer leader here in Tupelo, and she's been recognized for over 50 years as a volunteer leader. She bought me and my sister our first doll with hair because my mom could not afford to. So it was me and my sister and my brother. They're both now deceased, and I'm the only one that's left out of my immediate family. I don't know why. I asked God why. I said, well, it must be something here He wants me to do. That's how I look at it. Growing up, we were on assistance too. They called it food stamps, I believe, at the time. Now they call it SNAP benefits. I guess it's a dress your name, but it was still the same thing. And I remember my aunt, she would go and, get the groceries because she had been sickly. And my big mama, they would go shop. And they would come back with this food. It was this one big block of cheese. I don't know if anybody remembers that big block of cheese. And we get the powdered eggs. I remember the powdered milk. I remember the beans. And I remember my aunt Dolores would cook this roast beef that we all hated as children, but we had to eat it. And so we grew up on food stamps and government assistance. I remember the tomato sandwiches. I remember the molasses sandwiches. Things that we can make out of bread, or the mayonnaise sandwiches. I remember that. My big mama died, and then it was just my mom, my aunt, and us children. So the transition really did not happen until I went to college. It just did not happen. So I went to college, had my only child, got on food stamps because I needed to feed, and got on this other program called WIC. And so that's how I was able to take care of her and myself, and I worked part-time eventually. About 4 years ago, this November, I believe it will be 4 years, and we were doing a food drive in partnership with Ambetter from Magnolia Health, as well as the St. Luke Food Pantry. And I was really ecstatic to do this because I'm a member of the 4-H Club, I'm a volunteer leader, and we always give back, visit the nursing homes and things like that, do things for seniors. And I thought this is a fun way to help the community, to get people involved in providing food for people that need it. I knew then that I wanted it to be a long-term relationship where I can come back and provide. And volunteering here when the pandemic first happened, most people were afraid, nervous, but at the same time, I wanted to make it to where the people that we interacted with, that they wouldn't be nervous, that we were here to provide food for them when they really, really, really needed it. And I wanted them to get these services and not be afraid of it, or not be afraid to think that they would be turned away because, they had never done this before. And some were coming wondering, okay, what are the qualifications? Am I going to meet it? I have so many people in my household. Houses, it's just those little things like that we were concerned about. I was, but at the same time, I wanted to make it not to be a concern of theirs and them to feel free about that. This particular person that came through, I just do what I normally do. How many times, are you new here? And, get her information. And she started tearing up. And I said, man, what's wrong? She said, my son just died. He was only 46 years old. And he left behind 4 children. I believe it was 4 or 5. And the oldest one was 20 years old. And she was like, I don't know how I'm going to make it. My husband is deceased. She was in her 70s. But she knew she was the one that was going to have to take care of this family. And I've seen her since then from time to time. She's getting through the process of grieving, but it's still a challenge for her. She's like 76, 77 years old to now having to take care of a 20-year-old. I think it was a 16, 11, and a 9 that she's now responsible for. And I think there was one more that was 5. So it was really kind of heart-wrenching for me for, a person who thinks they have lived their life and now they will sit back and enjoy the grandbabies and give them back when they need to, but now she's going to be their provider. Once you realize that you are going to be fed today, your grandchildren are going to have food today. That was, she cried, to be honest with you. For her, there's just one less thing that she had to worry about in dealing with the death of her son. There was a man that came here to get food, and he was a utility worker. And the thing about it, he was nervous. I could tell he didn't want to be here. And he said, okay, so what do I do? And I said, well, sir, it's very simple. We just a form we asked you to fill out. We told him the little dynamics of it in the process for him to continue to come every month. He said, well, what about today? He was kind of gruff. I said, sir, we're going to serve you today. And he had this sigh of relief, like, thank you. And then from that point, he was nicer. He was more freed up. He was happy just to be here and to be able to get food. And for anybody that's out there listening to me and you've never had to think about where your meal is going to come from because you're used to working and providing for your family, it can be a scary thing because now you don't know. You hear all these stories, you got to provide ID, you have to, have a certain income, all of these different things, and you have no income. So what do? And, once we told him that he could get food that day for himself and his family, he was good after that. And growing up, with my only child, right, I used to go to the Salvation Army. And they had this thing called the Angel Tree. Remember that? And that's where I would get her toys from. And I would go there and get my food box. So I would do that. And, I would just tell anybody, I hadn't got to that part yet, don't be ashamed to come out here. Don't feel embarrassed. Don't feel like you're the only one, you're the Lone Ranger, because you're not. And we're not here to look down on anybody. As a matter of fact, I love them. If they come to me looking down, I got to do something to make them laugh. I just have to do that, because that's what's important to me.